Sunlight streamed through Emma's window. A new day began. She stretched, expecting the familiar pressure of her mattress. But something was wrong. There was no pressure, no weight. She was floating. Panic seized her. Her heart pounded in her chest. Her duvet drifted beside her like a fluffy cloud. Her bedside lamp spun lazily, casting strange shadows on the wall. This couldn't be real, could it? Emma wasn't alone. Across the globe, millions awoke to the same terrifying reality. Gravity had vanished.
In Tokyo, Hiroshi giggled. His toys danced around him. He was the center of a weightless circus. His parents watched in horror.
In Kenya, Aisha and her siblings shrieked with laughter. They mimicked swimming motions in the air. It was a magical game. Their parents prayed for it to end.
In Chicago, Mr. Jacobs cried out in fear. His wheelchair spun slowly in the middle of his living room. He was trapped in a terrifying carousel. Animals, too, felt the effects. Birds flapped helplessly, unable to control their flight. Dogs barked in confusion, their leashes pulling them skyward. The world was in disarray.
Outside, chaos reigned. People clung to lampposts and buildings, their legs dangling in the air. Cars drifted aimlessly, their horns blaring. The familiar order of the world had been shattered. Those caught outside during their morning commute were the most vulnerable. They reached for anything to anchor themselves: trees, fences, even each other. Panic spread like wildfire. News reports flooded the airwaves. "Gravity gone," screamed the headlines. Scientists struggled to explain the phenomenon. What had caused this sudden shift in the laws of physics? As the hours passed, the initial shock began to wear off. People started to adapt. Neighbors helped each other find shelter. Families tied themselves together with ropes. The human spirit, in the face of disaster, refused to be broken. But as night fell, a cold fear settled over the planet. The stars, once a source of wonder, now seemed like a cruel mockery. The earth, no longer held by its invisible tether, drifted silently in the void. The day gravity disappeared was the day the world changed forever. It was the beginning of a new era, an era of uncertainty and fear. But it was also the beginning of an era of human resilience, an era where the bonds of community and the strength of the human spirit would be tested like never before.
The city, once a symphony of motion and sound, now resembled a ghost town. The usual morning rush hour had transformed into a scene of eerie stillness. Cars, once symbols of freedom and progress, now bobbed uselessly in the air, their metal carcasses glinting under the morning sun. The sidewalks, usually teeming with pedestrians rushing to work, were deserted. The echo of a distant scream only amplified the unsettling silence that had enveloped the city. The air, usually thick with the smell of exhaust fumes and street food, was now curiously clean, as if nature itself was holding its breath. My once hot coffee now a floating orb of liquid, I watched in disbelief. The world as I knew it had been upended. The familiar rhythm of the city, the comforting predictability of my daily routine, had vanished in the blink of an eye.
My hands gripping the steering wheel, I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. The world outside my taxi was a dizzying spectacle of chaos. A bus, its nose pointed skyward, drifted past like a giant metal whale. Pedestrians, their faces contorted in fear, grasped at anything they could reach, their efforts futile against the relentless upward pull. My eyes darted to the back seat. My passengers, a young couple and an elderly woman, were no longer there. I had been so caught up in the spectacle unfolding outside that I hadn't noticed them float away. A surge of guilt and helplessness washed over me. I was trapped in my steel coffin, a helpless witness to the surreal events unfolding around me. The sounds of the city, once a familiar cacophony, now reached my ears in distorted fragments, a chorus of car alarms, the panicked cries of distant voices, the sickening crunch of metal against metal. It was a symphony of chaos, a terrifying soundtrack to the end of the world as we knew it.
As the initial shock began to subside, a chilling realization swept through the city. This was not a localized event, not a freak occurrence that would soon be rectified. The laws of physics, the fundamental forces that held our world together, had been disrupted, and there was no telling when or if they would return. The world stood still, not in the literal sense, for everything that was not anchored was now in perpetual chaotic motion. It stood still in the sense of time standing still, of life as we knew it grinding to a halt. The usual rhythms of the city, the ebb and flow of traffic, the hurried footsteps of pedestrians, the constant hum of activity, had been replaced by an unsettling silence, a silence pregnant with fear and uncertainty. The city, once a symbol of human progress and ingenuity, now stood as a stark monument to the fragility of our existence, a sobering reminder that even the most solid foundations could be shaken, that the order we took for granted could be shattered in an instant. Eli watched in stunned silence. A flock of sparrows, usually a whirlwind of chirps and precise movements, now tumbled haphazardly through the air. Their wings, designed for controlled flight, beat in a frenzied rhythm against the non-existent resistance. It was as if an invisible puppet master had cut the strings, leaving the birds to flail in a chaotic dance. A lone hawk, once a majestic hunter soaring effortlessly on thermal currents, now plummeted towards the earth. Its wings, no longer able to provide lift, beat frantically in a futile attempt to regain control. The bird, once a symbol of power and precision, was now a feathered projectile hurtling towards an uncertain fate. The air, normally alive with the sounds of birdsong, was filled with a cacophony of distressed chirps and squawks. The natural symphony of the forest had been replaced by a jarring concerto of confusion and fear. Eli, his heart heavy with a growing sense of dread, knew that this was only the beginning. He turned his attention to a nearby pond. A mother duck, her usually graceful movements reduced to clumsy jerks, paddled frantically in the water. Her ducklings, a bright yellow flotilla following in her wake, were now scattered across the sky. Their small wings, not yet strong enough for sustained flight, beat furiously, but they were losing the battle against the relentless upward pull. Eli watched in horror as one by one, the ducklings disappeared from view, their tiny forms swallowed by the vastness of the sky. The mother duck, her desperate quacks echoing across the water, circled the spot where her offspring had vanished. Her maternal instincts, hardwired over millennia, were no match for this new, terrifying reality. The delicate balance of nature, the intricate web of life that connected predator and prey, parent and offspring, had been irrevocably disrupted. The rules by which these creatures had lived and died for eons had been rewritten, and there was no telling what the consequences would be. The forest, once a sanctuary of vibrant life and hushed whispers, now echoed with the sounds of creatures in distress. Squirrels, their usual acrobatic grace gone, clung precariously to branches, their eyes wide with fear. Insects, their delicate wings no match for the lack of air resistance, tumbled helplessly towards the ground. Eli, his heart sinking with each passing moment, realized that the impact of this event extended far beyond the disorientation of a few birds. The entire ecosystem, the delicate balance of life that had evolved over millions of years, was teetering on the brink of collapse. The air, once filled with the sweet scent of pine needles and damp earth, now carried a faint metallic tang, a harbinger of the unknown dangers that lay ahead. The forest, once a place of solace and tranquility, had become a silent testament to the awesome and terrifying power of nature unleashed. As dusk settled over the land, casting long shadows across the disoriented landscape, Eli noticed a faint glimmer in the sky. A small flock of birds, silhouetted against the fading light, seemed to have found a way to navigate this new, weightless world. They flew in a tight formation, their wings beating in unison, their movements no longer chaotic but controlled, almost graceful. It was a sight that filled Eli with a flicker of hope, a testament to the resilience of nature, the ability of living creatures to adapt and survive even in the face of unimaginable challenges. As darkness enveloped the forest, Eli knew that the coming days would be fraught with challenges. But the sight of those birds, soaring effortlessly through the twilight sky, served as a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, life, in all its tenacity and beauty, would find a way. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the floating world in a soft, ethereal glow, a profound sense of isolation descended upon humanity. The familiar comfort of a grounded existence had been replaced by the unnerving reality of being adrift in a boundless void. Cities, once symbols of human achievement, now resembled islands in the sky, their lights twinkling like beacons of hope in the gathering darkness. Inside her apartment, Emma gazed out the window, her reflection staring back at her from the glass. The sight of her own frightened eyes mirrored the fear that gnawed at her insides. Below, she could see her neighbors gathering on rooftops, their faces illuminated by the flickering glow of flashlights and candles. The soft murmur of their voices, carried by the still air, spoke of both fear and a growing sense of community. Across the city, similar scenes were playing out as people sought solace in numbers, their shared predicament forging a bond stronger than any physical tether. Strangers became allies, their differences forgotten in the face of a common threat. The instinct to survive, to help one another, transcended the chaos and fear that threatened to consume them. In the absence of gravity, the rules of the game had changed, demanding a radical shift in human ingenuity. Necessity, the mother of invention, became the driving force as people devised ingenious ways to navigate their weightless world. Ropes and pulleys, once relegated to construction sites and adventure parks, became lifelines connecting buildings and creating makeshift bridges across the floating cityscape. Bicycles, stripped of their wheels, were transformed into personal gliders, their riders propelling themselves through the air with newfound freedom. Children, their laughter echoing through the empty streets, turned cardboard boxes into makeshift boats, their imaginations soaring as they navigated the currents of the wind. In workshops and garages, a quiet revolution was taking place as tinkerers and inventors, their minds buzzing with ideas, worked tirelessly to adapt existing technologies to this new reality. The air crackled with the sounds of welding torches and whirring drills as prototypes were built, tested, and refined. The human spirit, undeterred by adversity, had embraced the challenge, transforming fear into a catalyst for innovation. As days turned into nights, a new rhythm of life began to emerge from the chaos. Floating markets, stocked with essential supplies, sprung up at strategic points, their vendors using ropes and pulleys to transport goods and customers. Makeshift classrooms, suspended between buildings, allowed children to continue their education, their voices a testament to the enduring power of learning even in the most extraordinary of circumstances. The night sky, once a canvas for twinkling stars, now shimmered with the glow of countless lanterns, strung between buildings and suspended from rooftops. These ethereal lights, bobbing gently in the breeze, became symbols of hope, reminding people that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could illuminate the way forward. The world had changed, irrevocably altered by the disappearance of gravity, yet the human spirit had endured. From the ashes of the old world, a new society was emerging, one built on resilience, ingenuity, and an unyielding belief in the power of the human spirit to overcome even the most daunting of challenges. As Emma prepared for another night in her weightless world, a profound sense of uncertainty washed over her. The scientists, working tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of gravity's disappearance, offered no easy answers, no guarantees that their world would ever return to normal. She knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, fraught with challenges both known and unknown. Yet, as she gazed out at the city, its lights twinkling like fireflies in the darkness, she felt a surge of hope. The human spirit, she realized, was a resilient force, capable of adapting and thriving even in the face of unimaginable adversity. The disappearance of gravity had shattered their world, but it had also revealed the extraordinary strength and resilience of the human spirit. As a new dawn approached, casting its ethereal glow upon the floating city, Emma clung to the belief that even in the absence of gravity, humanity would find a way to rise above the challenges, to adapt, to innovate, and to create a new future for themselves among the stars. The world's laboratories hummed with a frantic energy. Scientists, their faces etched with fatigue and determination, grappled with the most perplexing enigma of their lifetimes, the very foundation of their understanding of the universe, the invisible force that held their world together, had vanished, leaving behind a void of unanswered questions. Dr. Eleanor Vance, a renowned astrophysicist, stared at the complex equations scrawled across her whiteboard. The numbers, once familiar and comforting, now seemed like taunting hieroglyphs, mocking her inability to decipher their meaning. Her intuition screamed that the answer lay hidden within those cryptic symbols, yet they remained stubbornly elusive. Across the globe, her colleagues echoed her frustration. Telescopes scanned the heavens, searching for any celestial anomaly that could explain the sudden disappearance of gravity. Geologists probed deep beneath the Earth's crust, hoping to find clues in the planet's molten heart. Yet, the answer remained shrouded in mystery, a phantom force that had both vanished and held the world captive in its absence. Amidst the global scramble for answers, a whisper of a solution emerged from the bustling labs of the European Organization for Nuclear Research, also known as CERN. Dr. Alastair Singh, a brilliant but eccentric theoretical physicist, had been working on a radical new theory, one that challenged the very fabric of their understanding of the universe. His hypothesis, met with skepticism and even ridicule from some of his peers, proposed that gravity wasn't a fundamental force, but rather a side effect, a ripple in the fabric of space-time caused by the interaction of particles in a hidden dimension. If true, it meant that the disappearance of gravity wasn't a cosmic accident, but a deliberate act, a manipulation of these hidden particles. Dr. Singh's theory, though radical, offered a glimmer of hope. If gravity's disappearance was the result of manipulating these hidden particles, then perhaps it could be reversed. The key lay in deciphering the mechanism, the technology, by which these particles could be controlled. The world watched with bated breath as Dr. Singh's theory, initially dismissed as the ramblings of a madman, began to gain traction. The scientific community, galvanized by the urgency of the situation, set aside their differences and rivalries, uniting in a common quest to unravel the mysteries of this hidden dimension. Data poured in from research institutions across the globe, feeding into a central hub at CERN. Supercomputers whirred to life, crunching numbers, running simulations, desperately seeking the key to unlocking the secrets of gravity's disappearance. The world held its breath, praying for a breakthrough, a glimmer of hope in the face of an uncertain future. The disappearance of gravity had thrown the world into chaos, but it had also ignited a firestorm of scientific inquiry, a global collaboration unlike anything seen before. The stakes were higher than ever before, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. Yet, in the face of this unprecedented challenge, the human spirit, the unyielding thirst for knowledge, refused to be extinguished. The quest for answers had begun. Weeks turned into months. The Earth, a celestial ship without an anchor, drifted through the cosmos. The initial panic had subsided, replaced by a quiet determination to survive, to rebuild, to adapt. On the streets, children played games in the weightless air, their laughter a melody of resilience. Inside labs, the hum of innovation continued. Scientists tirelessly pursued Dr. Singh's theory, their efforts fueled by a glimmer of hope. Every experiment, every calculation was a step towards understanding, a step towards a solution. The global community, once divided by borders and ideologies, was now united by a common purpose. Emma. Gazing out my window, I no longer saw a world in chaos. I saw a world transformed. The familiar landmarks of my city, now suspended in the sky, had become symbols of human endurance. The floating markets, the makeshift schools, the networks of ropes and pulleys, all testament to the boundless capacity of the human spirit to innovate and overcome. The disappearance of gravity had stripped away more than just a physical force. It had stripped away the illusion of certainty, the belief in a fixed and immutable reality. Humanity had been unanchored, cast adrift in a sea of unknowns. Yet, in that unmooring, something profound had been revealed. They had discovered a strength they never knew they possessed, a resilience forged in the fires of adversity. They had learned to adapt, to innovate, to rely on each other in ways they never thought possible. They had learned that the human spirit, much like the earth itself, was capable of existing, of thriving, even without a tether. The future remained uncertain. The earth was still adrift, the mystery of gravity's disappearance unsolved. But amidst the uncertainty, a new truth had emerged. Humanity, stripped bare by crisis, had discovered its true potential. It had discovered that its spirit, like the universe itself, was boundless, resilient, and forever unanchored.